Top of the morning to you. Good morning. The 29th of January 2020, it's Wednesday, and this is the nonsense that is the newspaper review show in all its glory, with stellar production values and all of that. Hope you're well, you're in good form. It's a madhouse here in the Richie Allen show Towers. It's a madhouse with a young pup running around. It's insanity. I've never been one in my life to wish time away, because I'm somebody who lives in the present. I'm very happy to live in the present. I don't wish, that time will pass. I don't pine for the past. I don't look to the future. I'm in the moment, me. I always have been. But I'm kind of hoping that the next 3 months will just fly by. And then the new addition to our little family will be less of a problem. Less of a terrorist. Crazy times with young pups. It's lovely, it's great fun. It's very tiring though. Very tiring. She's in a playpen downstairs at the moment. Now, dogs don't belong in playpens or cages. And we only use it for that very brief time that we can't be in the room with her, for obvious reasons. It's a big old thing. It's about 10 times her size. It's a big old thing. But she's not thrilled about it. And is making herself known, or making herself heard. But anyway, she's out and about with me all the time. I'm basically working the radio show around entertaining the dog. But thankfully the future Mrs. Allen, because of the position she's in, is able to work from home from time to time. Her company has facilitated that, which is good. And this week she's been home. Today she's not. Tomorrow she'll be home. And we'll get through it together. A very good morning to those of you on the chat there. Thanks for chatting away. Kind of warms my heart. Warms the cockles. Hi to Jennifer in Florida. How you doing, Jennifer? I bet you it's beautiful in Florida there. Hi to Chris and to Jinx Jackson and to Dillip and Simon and Graham Han in North Wales, in Flintshire in North Wales. I'm sure it's chilly there. Graham, it's chilly here, but not too bad. Charlie girl, Nigel is in Brisbane. How you doing, Nigel? It's in the late afternoon there in Brisbane, I think. Rick, to Paul Paranite, to Andrew, to the fellow gammon, says Andrew. Good morning. And to Marcus Horton, who's in Clonetly. How you doing, Marcus? As soon as there is a case, I'm burning the death towers down in my area. 5G is the coronavirus. Marcus, I'm going to give you a little bit of advice. And I'll give this to everybody. I've had a couple of emails from people who say that they're planning to take matters into their own hands. Here's my advice to you. The penalties for doing that and being caught are severe. You're talking about a custodial sentence. So I would think very hard about doing it before doing it. Now, I'm not being hypocritical here. I'm an advocate for and a champion of non-violent civil disobedience. But you've also got to box clever, is what I would say. And just think about it. I understand emotions are running high, understandably, when it comes to 5G and the problems with 5G. The skynews.com, by the way, if you're interested, it's free to read. Anyway, it's run a piece today about 5G, including a section asking, is it safe? And of course, the is it safe section contains horse manure. Shit, basically. It conveniently ignores the thousands now of mainstream academic scientists who are warning about the implications for us when we are exposed to this technology. So, mate, just be careful, is what I would say. Alrighty. Okay. Let's go straight to the papers then, eh? And the Mirror. And this warmed, again, speaking of the cockles of the heart and warming the heart, this really warmed my heart this morning because it took me back. Although I live in the present, it's nice to be reminded sometimes of days of yore. This took me back to my days on the radio in Spain, this story here. Victim's son, I've tracked down Lord Lucan. The mysterious case of the disappearance of Lord Lucan, the Labour peer. Yeah, in the early 70s. Lord Lucan. The nanny was murdered. What happened there? Well, I'll tell you in a second. Let's look just inside the paper at the story. if I've got it here. I have. I've been a bit more careful today about my planning of my images. So here's the story inside the paper, but I put the old specs on. Son of Lord Lucan's murdered nanny claims to have found missing Earl alive. So this is quite a serious story. So this guy has obviously been on the case of what happened to Lord Lucan for some years, and he believes that he's discovered his whereabouts. If he's right, Lucan would be in his early to mid 80s now, or thereabouts. This is a great old English tale, the tale of Lord Lucan, which has inspired many a theory, not only about the whereabouts of Lord Lucan, but, kind of what really happened. So this guy is Neil Berryman, and he said Lucan, who vanished after the murder of Sandra Rivet in 1974, is living as a Buddhist in a shared house. I'm not laughing at because I'm incredulous. The guy might be right, who knows? But it's funny if that's the case, if he is living as a Buddhist in a shared house. The man believed to be Lucan, according to this, is actually not very well at all, and he's awaiting major surgery. And he's virtually housebound in a large detached house in the suburbs. This is in Australia. He believes he's in Australia. Berryman has been to Scotland's cold case unit, Scotland Yard, Richie, Scotland Yard, get a grip, Richie. He's been to Scotland Yard's cold case unit with his findings, and he's told them, I believe I've tracked down Lord Lucan, who murdered my mum. And the police apparently have agreed to look into the claims. That they've now got to take it seriously and try and figure out if that's the case. So there you go. This mystery man needs a part-time carer and often sits on the veranda listening to trains in the distance. Apparently, according to this guy Berryman, whose mother was the nanny, Lucan based himself in Perth when he escaped to Australia, but he moved to another part of the country after a series of disagreements with pals. Right. Why are you interested then, BBG, you might ask? Well, I didn't know very much about Lord Lucan, apart from the occasional piece in newspapers over the years, and family members might read the true crime magazines. Do you remember the true crime magazines? They used to get advertised on television on ITV, True Crime Monthly, and those used to be lying around the house when I was growing up, so I would read stuff, about Lord Lucan. But what interested me about Lord Lucan was when I was on the radio in Spain, I used to talk to a man a lot. He used to be on the show a lot because I found him very amusing. A man called Giovanni Di Stefano. Now, a number of you will have heard, no doubt, of Giovanni Di Stefano. He was dubbed the Devil's Advocate. Now, Giovanni is in jail now because he was convicted of fraud a few years ago and sent to prison. He might be due for release sometime soon. But he was a remarkable character. A real blackguard, as we would say in Ireland, a real character. Now, to the people whom he defrauded out of money, he was a criminal, and I absolutely endorse that. And for the crimes he committed in stealing people's money, he had to expect a custodial sentence, and indeed he got one. But he used to come on my radio show, Giovanni. There he is. Amazing guy. If you Google Giovanni Di Stefano, he was able to basically practice law for many, many years without having any license whatsoever. He moved among film stars in Italy and in the UK and in the US, and sports stars, keeping himself in the headlines in the 80s and in the 90s. He apparently worked with Saddam Hussein. Unbelievable character. I could be here all day telling you about him. Best you do your own research. There is a Wikipedia page for him, which is a very brief page about what he did and where he is now. When he does get out of prison, I will bring him on the radio show. Kick the balls out of him for defrauding people out of money, obviously. But then chat about some of the experiences he's had, because it's hard to discern with Giovanni what is true, what isn't true, what is half-truth, and what is downright lies. Because he told me a lot of very interesting things on the radio show over the years. I took a lot of what he said with a large pinch of salt. But a lot of other things he said to me were were right on. He believes to this day that he's innocent of the fraud conviction. And he believes that he's the victim of the establishment cover-up of what happened in the lead up to the war in Iraq. He blames Tony Blair for a lot of his problems these days. But an unbelievable character. Like, I'm not doing him great justice now, but I don't have time to get into it. Giovanni Di Stefano. Right. Why mention Giovanni? Well, Giovanni came on the radio show with me in Spain some years ago. And he told me this amazing story about Lord Lucan and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, I'm guessing, because of who you are, because you like a good conspiracy theory as much as I do, I'm guessing that you may have heard this particular story along the journey, along the road. You might have heard about Lord Lucan and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Got a very interesting picture of Arnie here. Here he is. There's Arnie during his time in London. Here he is there, right? Bring Arnie down there. You've got Giovanni there, right? Right. So, Lucan was a hereditary peer. And he lived the high life, Lucan. He was, you wouldn't say he was a bon vivant. What would you call him, really? I don't know. He was a man about town, Lucan, wasn't he? And he loved a bit of a flutter. He loved to gamble, did Lucan. He loved to gamble. And the gambling got him into trouble. This is undisputed now, Lucan had massive, massive gambling debts. He was a gambling degenerate, really. And that ended up with him being booted out of his home by his wife, Veronica. Right? So she kicked him out because he owed, even for the early 70s, extreme sums of money. And they had 3 children. And that got ugly as well, with a big court case about who got the children and all the rest of it. But in the end, Lucan had to sell off the family home in order to pay back the gambling debts that he had accrued. But he didn't stop gambling in the meantime. Okay? Now, this all begins one night when Lucan's estranged wife runs into a local pub and she's covered from head to toe in blood. For those of you who have heard this story, just bear with us for a minute, because there will be people who are watching this nonsense and they won't have heard this story before. So the wife comes into a pub anyway one night. I've made a couple of bullet points for myself so I don't lose my place. Covered in blood. And she says to everybody there that Lucan had murdered the nanny, Sandra Rivet, the mother of the man who's in the mirror today. But not only that, that Lucan had then tried to kill her too. So the police were called. And the police rocked up to the family home. But by that stage, Lucan was gone. And until now, anyway, with the son of Sandra Rivet, nobody knows where Lucan ended up. Nobody. There's been plenty of speculation over the years. And as far as I know, over the years, the tabloids have run headlines from time to time about various unsubstantiated sightings. Lucan was seen in Disney World in Florida. Lucan was seen in the caves in the Tora Bora Mountains. Lucan was seen in New Zealand, etc., etc., etc. So there's always been this real fascination. I think the UK public has always had people have always had this fascination with Lucan and where he ended up. So Giovanni Di Stefano, the man you can see there above Arnie, said to me one night on the radio, and like I said, Giovanni's a bit of a con man. A rogue. I found him a lovable rogue, but I condemn utterly the defrauding of people out of money, claiming to be somebody you're not, taking their money and then doing a runner. It doesn't matter how lovable I might have found him. He's been convicted of it, and I'm pretty sure he did it. Whatever about the Tony Blair government coming after him, I think there's a lot of truth in that as well. But I think he's a fraudster, Giovanni. And I don't endorse that, as you well know. But he said to me one night, he said, Richie, I believe, he said, that Arnold Schwarzenegger had a part to play in this Lord Lucan thing. And when he said this, he gave me no warning beforehand he was going to say it. He just brought it up out of the blue. And I said, will you fuck off, Giovanni, will you? As I'm scrambling to remember what exactly happened on the night of Lucan's disappearance. And Giovanni said, you have to remember, he was very convincing. He said, Arnie was in London at the time, and he was well known in London. Obviously, he had success as a bodybuilder, and he was working out of a gym in London. He was seen at several gyms there, apparently. And Giovanni said to me, during that particular time, with no real income coming in, Arnie fell in with loan sharks and bookies in the underworld. And Arnie fell in with them as a means to making a few bob as a leg breaker, right? You didn't pay your bookie back. You didn't pay back the ridiculous loan you got from the moneylender. Arnie would come around and beat the granny out of you and get some money out of you, right? And at this time, Lucan had serious debt problems and he owed a lot of money to some unsavoury characters. You see where this is going. It's also alleged that Lucan was well in with American politicians, that he had his contacts in America. And Arnie needed a green card. Right? Okay. A green card for America, obviously. Arnie wanted to go to America, didn't have a green card, couldn't get one. So there was a plot hatched between Lucan and Arnie. And the plot was that Arnie would murder Lucan's wife so that Lucan could get his children back, but could then sell the house and not have to give any money to his wife. And apparently Arnie agreed to it. But Arnie wouldn't have been top of the class now in terms of the brains department, according to Giovanni. And Arnie made a complete fucking balls of the job and mistook the nanny for Lord Lucan's wife and bashed the fucking daylights out of the nanny, right? I shouldn't laugh because people died, right? I want this to be true. I desperately want this to be true. So he mistook the nanny for Lady Lucan and murdered the fucking nanny. And apparently he used an iron bar to do it. Arnie scarpered. Lucan rocked up and realised that Arnie made a balls of it. And the wife was still alive. Lucan took over and assaulted the wife, and that's how the wife ended up in the pub covered in blood. There you are. And Giovanni said that Lucan then met up with Arnie. And they drove down the coast and he escaped. And one of the funny things about all of this, and if you want to read more about this, there is a story in Vice magazine about it. There's a good story in Vice magazine which basically outlines the facts as I've given them to you. The facts. The theory, the conspiracy theory. The facts, Jesus. And Giovanni did write to Schwarzenegger when he was governor, asking him straight out whether he had killed the nanny, but also asking him had he killed Lord Lucan, because Giovanni believes that Lucan is actually dead, that when they went up the coast together, Arnie, realising that Lucan was the only living witness to what Arnie had done, bashed the bejesus out of Lord Lucan and buried his body. So there you are. Some story, huh? But I remember talking to Giovanni a lot off air, and Giovanni had skin thicker than a rhinoceros. When I used to interview him, I used to really go after him. You couldn't say anything that would offend him. He would laugh and laugh and laugh. And I would call him a fucking gangster and a bullshitter on air. You know, when he would talk about his work with Saddam Hussein and what he was doing with Dundee United football and everything else that he was fucking into, I would say, come on, you're some fucking gangster. And he had real thick skin. But he said to me a number of times privately, he said, I'm telling you, this story about Lucan is absolutely true. Nobody knows who Arnold Schwarzenegger was before he started showing up in he wasn't in Clash of the Titans, so he wasn't. What was the fucking thing he was in? What was the first one he was in? The first big one? Oh, Jesus Christ. You'll tell me anyway. So that's the story, and it's in the Mirror today. So it looks like Giovanni might be wrong if Sandra Rivet's son is right and that Lord Lucan is living in a house full of Buddhists in Australia. Fantastic. Yeah. Like I said, I want the story to be true. Excuse me. There's Arnie and there's old Giovanni there, who's currently detained at Her Majesty's pleasure. I've sent a couple of emails to a close friend of Giovanni's over the years, which have gotten to him to inquire about his well-being in prison. And he's even managed to write a blog about his time in prison, which you can find online as well. A fascinating character, Giovanni, a real rogue. Don't ever lend him any money, I would say. But an interesting guy. That was the Mirror. That's taken up plenty of time now. Jesus wept. Andrew, I will talk to the FBI, says the Grand Old Duke of Porkies. I had this condition where I didn't sweat. Fuck off, man. Of course, victims' lawyers standing outside of Epstein's Manhattan residence said, the Grand Old Duke of Porkies won't talk to us. And Andrew's come out today and said, fuck that, said Andrew. I will talk. There's the story. I haven't snubbed the investigators, he said. So, fair play to the Mail, and I hope the Mail will hold him to that and will follow up on it. And will cover the paper trail, because there should be a paper trail now between the people who want to talk to the Duke of Porkies in New York and the palace. Let's see the paper trail. Let's get this fucker on the record. Right? I will talk to the FBI, bejesus, said Andrew. The Telegraph. There's a picture of Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, the criminal, the cowardly, motherless fucker who tried to get his wife to cop to corruption charges so that he would be off the hook and could remain as the Israeli Prime Minister. What a scumbag. There they are, laughing and joking, saying, we fucked the Palestinians again. We might come to that in a minute. Johnson promises to end reliance on Huawei yesterday, despite warnings, repeated warnings, from the Americans not to use Huawei in providing 5G access in the UK. The UK government said, well, we will use them anyway, but we will limit Huawei's access. You know the story by now. I won't bore the absolute granny or bejesus out of you. Here's the Metro then. I can hear her kicking off downstairs. I'll meet you half Huawei. Same story. And some newspapers today carrying a photograph of the British television personality Nicholas Parsons, whom I remember watching as a young boy on a television programme called Sale of the Century. Excuse me. And apparently a very nice fella. Everybody who's ever worked in TV or radio, whoever had anything to do with Nicholas Parsons, said the chap was an absolute gentleman. And he had a good innings, did Nicholas, and he passed away yesterday. A lot of tributes to him in the papers today. Or yesterday, Gorev on him. Good luck to him on his onward journey. I like to hear that. I like to hear about people in television and radio, successful people, treating people properly and being nice to their producers and editors and getting on with people. It's nice that. You know, no I in team. Are you still with me? Apparently we've dropped out and we've dropped in and we've dropped out. I'm very sorry about that. There's nothing I can do about it. We've dropped out and we've dropped in and we've dropped out. Okay. And Emily Maitlis, is it? Looks a bit like Emily Maitlis, who presents Newsnight. I don't know what that's about, and I don't really care. So we'll move on. That's the Times, co-presents Newsnight. The iPaper today then. UK defies US, blah, 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 blah. Financial Times. US condemns UK decision to give Huawei a limited role. Apparently Mike Pompeo was in the UK today, and well, he's fuming. Mike Pompeo. We ran courses when I was in the CIA on how to lie, to cheat and to steal, said Mike Pompeo. Oh yeah. We ran courses. And now he's the US Secretary of State. George Carlin said it's a big fucking club and you ain't in it. Never a truer word, eh? Never a truer word. Never a truer word. Right, we're going to move on. There is one more newspaper, is there? Have we forgotten one today? We've forgotten The Guardian. Jesus wept, there's a few more newspapers. Let's quickly run through these. The Guardian. Trump plan for Middle East peace condemned. Yes, this is Trump's proposal for a two-state solution. Palestinians have said, fuck right off, pal. There's Nicholas Parsons again. The Sun. Missing Parsons. Apparently Nicholas would have found that amusing. And a photograph of a woman who is on television, apparently, because the National Television Awards were televised last night. The Mail. Smart M-way death traps. Smart motorway death traps. We need to get into that, really. We will, on the radio show. We'll leave it for now, though. And finally, the Star goes with Corrie, Rita, I fear the axe. Coronation Street, the longest running serial drama in the world. And Barbara Knox plays Rita. Coronation Street is filmed over there. A 10-minute walk away from here. The studios are now based at Salford Media City, or Media City in Salford. They filmed Corrie over there in a big gigantic set. We all know about Corrie. Barbara Knox has played Rita since Moses was in short trousers, and she's worried about getting the axe. What a selfish bitch! You've been in the show for 56 years, you fucker. Give young people a chance. We need a bit of diversity. Yeah. Jesus Christ, love, you know? Fucking hell, like. I mean, could you complain, Barbara, if they called you in on Wednesday and said, listen, Rita is going to have a stroke and die? I mean, could you really complain, you know? 56 fucking years. And what about the other guy? Falsely accused of sexual misconduct with minors. What was his name? Ken Barlow. Bill Roach, that's the guy, Bill Roach. He's been there forever and a day as well. Unbelievable. Right, good morning to you. On sale of the century, indeed. Indeedy. Very good morning to all of you who are messaging the bejesus out of one another. Yeah, the stream has dropped out once or twice. I love those films from the 80s. I love Commando. And I love the cheesy one-liners when villains are being dispatched in gruesomely brutal ways. I love that shit. I can watch that all day long. Red Heat. The one where Raw Deal, where he played the cop who infiltrated the mafia. Fantastic. Lovely. Arnie's movies. So did he murder Lord Lucan? Well, who knows? But I kind of want it to be true. Right, what else have we got then today? This is important, this, you know. I often jest about men being men back in the day. Talked yesterday about the things that men did when men could be men on a football pitch. We've often talked about it when men could be men, hunter-gatherers. You know, when a man could tell a woman, you know, shut up! I'm watching the news. Shut the fuck up! Where's my dinner? And get me a beer out of the fridge, love. God be with the days when you could say that without getting fucking killed in your sleep by the psychotic bitch you're living with. I'd never say anything like that to the future Mrs. Allen. I'd be murdered in my sleep. It's like the old Eddie Murphy joke. She'd be like, no problem. Why don't you just go to sleep? She'd fucking kill me. But God be with the days when men were men, hunter-gatherers, when they were allowed to be masculine, and testosterone wasn't some, you know, decried as some sort of thing to be feared, as something to be scorned, to be mocked, to be ridiculed, when men could have balls. Look what's happening to our children. I fucking said this a few times on the radio show, and I got laughed at. Emma Beddington is writing in The Guardian about the feminization of boys. She doesn't say that she's writing about the feminization of boys, but she fucking is. Okay? From men's magazines to the chiseled gods of Love Island, boys are inundated with messages to both bulk up and moisturise. It all reminds me of my own youth, much of it wasted on bulimia. Fuck bulimia! It's got nothing to do with it. Yes, it reminds you of your youth because you're a girl. And girls use fucking moisturisers and read women's magazines. And girls are concerned about their appearance. Every female creature on planet Earth, from fucking geckos to fucking albatrosses, the females pretty themselves up and put on displays to woo the male of the species. Yes, bulimia's got fuck all to do with it. It's what you did. But now men are doing it. They're wearing makeup and they're walking around with man bags. When I see blokes on the street wearing man bags, even though it's not a new phenomenon, man bags have been around since the early noughties. I want to take the man bag and beat the fucker to death with it. What are you doing, man? With their fucking hair. And I'm not jealous because they have hair. These fucking Alice bands. And now makeup and moisturiser. Look at what she says in this piece here. This is no laughing matter, this. Look at what she says, look. She says, in The Guardian, fucking man bags. You know, with 2 teenage sons, you can see it there at the top. The whole uneasy business of young men's body image is very immediate for me. Protein is the household deity, and our cupboards are full of pre- and post-workout powders and potions with violently overwrought names like Beast, Curse, Explode and Venom. The parents of other teenage boys I know report the same. One of my friends even wrote a poem about her son's protein powders sharing a shelf with her dad's ashes. Boys care about how they look in more unexpected ways, she says. My son's bathroom shelf has a Boots worth. Boots is a big retailer in the UK. It's a big retailer. Health products, medicines, perfumes, makeup, right? I know you know this, obviously, if you're in the UK. My son's bathroom shelf has a Boots worth of scrubs and moisturisers. I'd kill him. I would beat the fuck out of him. Jesus Christ. He's got AHA peels. I don't know what they are because I'm a man. And facial oils. One of my boys even asked me to buy him £40 eye cream. Eye cream, she writes. I'm 45 and I can't be bothered with eye cream. At 15 and 17, they and their mates glow with health and youth, and a single moment spent worrying about how they look seems to me a ludicrous waste of time. Something is up. It's an agenda. It's part of, again, a far-reaching, long-planned agenda to blur the sexes, to feminise men, to emasculate men. It's all part of a number of agendas. One of them obviously being the ultimate depopulation agenda. But it goes and segues into other areas as well. Transhumanism, a kind of a monosex thing that we've talked about before. Shocking that. Boys using scrubs and moisturisers and fucking eye cream. And it's not an isolated example, she says, because her friends, she goes on to say, who have boys in their teen years say the same thing. They're turning into fucking girls. Imagine it. What would you do if you had a son? I don't know. I don't fucking know, to be honest. Here's a sad and a depressing story. YouTube. The state actor YouTube. Because YouTube has more users than any individual country has citizens. Yes, even China. YouTube has more active users and subscribers. People who have a channel. Amazingly. Through Google. And they have successfully taken over the video sharing platform business They own it now. There isn't any real competition to it. They've eviscerated the competition. This happened when Google was allowed to acquire YouTube, something which should never have been allowed to happen, because Google, then the biggest search engine in the world, uses its own, because it owns YouTube, basically marginalizes and hides every other video sharing platform and directs everybody to YouTube, to the content it wants people to watch, while deleting and banning content which Google has deemed to be unsuitable for you to watch or for you to hear. They did it to me 2 years ago. Channel, 100,000 subscribers. I never harmed a soul. My content couldn't be construed as or claimed to be harmful to anybody. Deleted the channel. We had nearly 30 million views on that channel. Deleted. Fuck 'em, right? Okay. But they're allowed to do it. And they've done it to Press TV. And I'm going to be talking about this on the radio show later on. Later on. With Kevin Barrett, who's a long time Press TV contributor. We'll also talk about Palestine with Kevin, among other things. Just got rid of him. Like that. Ofcom kicked Press TV out of the UK a few years ago. Now YouTube have said, you're gone. Giving them no real reason. Just a vague reason about Press TV spouting propaganda from Tehran. Does Press TV sometimes spout pro-Iranian propaganda? You bet your fucking life it does. But what about the BBC? What about Sky News? What about Fox News? Fox News is Donald Trump's propaganda fucking channel. Is YouTube moving to delete Fox News from the platform? No. Not anytime soon. But they've deleted Press TV. And I got to know some of the Press TV guys in London, in Hanger Lane, which is where they were based. And they're good guys, balancing their responsibility to their government, because it is a state-owned operation, but also with their own desire to do independent journalism. And they've done a lot of very good independent journalism, Press TV. But they're gone. Will RT be next? I don't know. RT has a much bigger presence on YouTube than anybody else. Certainly than Press TV. It's massive. RT's main channel, and then RT America, and then RT UK. So will YouTube go after RT? I don't know. If you watch an RT video now on YouTube, Google has placed a message under every video declaring that RT is partly controlled by the Russian government. It's disgusting, this. It's disgusting. Everybody in the world is on there. That was the plan all along. Get everybody into the same place. Then start cutting, banning, shadow banning, which is just as bad, where you still have your channel, but they just make sure that people don't see your videos. My individual videos used to get 30 to 40,000 views, individual videos. Now, 4,000 if I'm lucky. That's what they do. And they get away with it. And they'll continue to get away with it. Because don't think there's any appetite in Western democracies, Western governments, to deal with it. The reporter who got fired from the Washington Post got her job back, by the way, after Kobe Bryant's death was announced and people were rushing to eulogise Kobe and virtue signal. This lady said, well, hang on a second, he was a flawed character. And she was fired by the Post. They've brought her back. They had no fucking choice but to bring her back, because they would have lost in court, they would have lost in a tribunal, they would have lost in any hearing you care to mention, because they had no lawful right to fire her. She was telling the truth. But again, how creepy. How creepy that she was fired, Everybody's running this morning. The Times is running it, but we'll have a look at the BBC. Fucking need it, Richie. Here you are. Dissatisfaction with democracy is at a record high. I wonder why. In the West, people who have been questioned by academics for a big survey, for a big report, are expressing real unhappiness with democracy. More and more people are saying, and these are people now who don't listen to programs like the Richie Allen radio show, or they don't get their information from davidike.com, or they don't get their information from whatreallyhappened.com. These are people who get their information from the BBC. How do you feel about democracy? And more people are saying it's a fucking sham. Of course it's a sham. They campaigned in their manifesto to do A, B, C and D. Then they got in and A, B, C and D went by the wayside. And then they started bombing countries overseas, rendering millions of people homeless and creating a migrant flow and all the rest of it. So I'm fairly cheesed off. I don't know what's happening here. This is very encouraging, actually. Must be said. Very encouraging. People are saying, fuck, what's going on? They're not blaming populism either. They're trying to get to the heart of it. The heart of it is that people are beginning to wake up to the fact that there is no such thing as democracy. That it is as useless as tits on a bull. Going to a primary school on a Thursday morning every few years and casting your vote for Rebecca Long Bailey or for some other fucker. It's finally dawning on people. Of course, the next stage is, what will people do with that information? Knowing that the whole thing is rigged and that it doesn't matter if it's Jeremy or Boris, nor does it matter if it's Uncle Joe, Creepy Joe Biden or Donald Trump or fucking Bernie Sanders. What will they do with that? Will they just retreat further and further into themselves, into their own lives, into their own homes, their own social media channels? Or will people be exercised enough to do something about it? I don't know. I hope the latter, ultimately. I hope the latter. But I don't know. There you go. That's about it really for this newspaper crap this morning. I've loads to do now ahead of today's radio show, so I'm going to crack on and do it. Thanks for putting up with this nonsense. Thanks to those of you who were kind enough to leave comments there. Really appreciate that. Great stuff. Okay. We will speak again at 5 o'clock then. That's UK time today. Kevin Barrett is among the guests. And we'll talk, of course, about the deletion of Press TV by YouTube, the implications of that. We'll also get into Palestine, Israel, but more as well. And we'll take a different direction then later on in the programme today. There you are. Right. I'll see you later. Bye for now. Bye.